I am standing in what used to be my corner office, holding a termination email that still feels surreal. 8 years ago, this company was hemorrhaging money, and my brother was too busy partying to notice our family legacy crumbling. Back then, I was just the overlooked younger son, watching our father's 45-year-old construction business die a slow death. Everyone believed Marcus had what it took to save us. Nobody expected the quiet engineer in the background to become the one who would transform everything. But sometimes, life has a funny way of surprising everyone, including yourself. Before I dive into this family battle that changed everything, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button if you have ever felt underestimated in your own family. Subscribe, because trust me, the ending of this story is going to blow your mind. Now let me take you back to where it all began. The Harrison and Sons Construction Company had been our family pride for 45 years when everything started falling apart. My father, William Harrison, was 62 and had built this business from nothing, but the 2008 recession hit us harder than most. By 2016, we were drowning. The company had lost $2.3 million in just 18 months. Our client base had shrunk by 60%, and we were down to 12 employees from what used to be 53. Dad was stressed beyond belief. His heart condition was getting worse, and he knew he needed someone to take over soon. Marcus, my older brother, was 30 years old and seemed like the obvious choice. He had been the golden boy his entire life. Captain of the football team in high school, MBA from Northwestern University, charming personality that could light up any room. Everyone loved Marcus. He was 6 feet 2 inches tall, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a smile that made clients trust him instantly. Dad had been grooming him to take over since college, and Marcus had been working as our business development manager for 3 years. Then there was me, Leonard Harrison, 26 years old, 5 feet 10 inches brown hair. That was always a bit messy from wearing hard hats all day. I had a degree in civil engineering from State University, nothing fancy. I preferred blueprints to boardrooms, calculations to cocktail parties. While Marcus was networking at expensive restaurants, I was on construction sites, making sure our projects actually got completed. Dad respected my technical skills, but leadership, that was Marcus' territory. The turning point came during a particularly brutal winter morning in January 2016. Dad called both of us into his office, his face gray with exhaustion. The mahogany desk that used to represent success now felt like a command center for a sinking ship. He looked at Marcus first, as always. "Son, I am making you Chief Operating Officer. We need fresh leadership, and the clients respond to you." Then he turned to me with what felt like an afterthought. "Leonard, you will report to Marcus as Senior Project Manager. Your job is to make sure his vision becomes reality." Marcus pumped his fist and started talking about expansion plans and market penetration strategies. I just nodded and went back to my desk, swallowing the familiar taste of being second choice. What I did not know was that this moment would set everything in motion. The differences between us became crystal clear within weeks. Marcus treated his new position like an excuse to network even harder. He was at yacht parties every weekend, playing golf with potential clients during work hours, hitting up expensive nightclubs downtown, claiming he was building relationships. His Instagram feed looked like a lifestyle magazine, all expensive suits and champagne glasses. Meanwhile, I was pulling 70-hour weeks, trying to keep our existing projects from completely falling apart. I spent my evenings taking online courses in financial management and digital marketing, knowing that technical skills alone were not going to save us. I was learning QuickBooks, studying market trends, trying to understand why we kept losing bids to competitors. The moment I realized how deep our problems ran was during a crucial meeting with Green Tech Solutions, a sustainable development company that could have been our biggest client in 2 years. Marcus showed up 20 minutes late, clearly hungover from another networking event. His hands were shaking slightly, and I could smell alcohol on his breath. The potential client, Jennifer Walsh, noticed immediately. Her professional smile froze, as Marcus stumbled through a presentation he clearly had not prepared for. I watched $800,000 in potential revenue slip away as Marcus fumbled basic questions about timeline and material costs. After the clients left, he laughed it off. "Do not worry, little brother. There are plenty of fish in the sea." But there were not plenty of fish. We were running out of ocean. That night, I stayed in the office until 2 in the morning, crafting a follow-up proposal that addressed every concern Jennifer had raised. I researched sustainable building materials, created detailed cost breakdowns, and included a project timeline that was both ambitious and realistic. When I hand-delivered it to GreenTech the next day, Jennifer looked surprised. "Your brother said you were just the technical guy," she said, flipping through my proposal. 3 days later, we had our first major contract in over 2 years. But when Dad announced the good news to the company, Marcus took full credit, talking about his relationship-building strategy and long-term vision. I stood in the back of the room, invisible as always, but something inside me had shifted. That $800,000 contract was not just money. It was proof that I could do this job better than anyone realized. With one successful contract under our belt, I started implementing changes that Marcus was too distracted to notice. I introduced lean construction methodology after studying Toyota's manufacturing principles for months. This approach eliminated waste in our processes, reducing material costs by 35% and cutting project timelines by 2 weeks on average. While Marcus was at another charity golf tournament, I was redesigning our entire operational framework. I formed a partnership with a tech startup downtown to implement construction management software that tracked every aspect of our projects in real time. No more lost materials, no more scheduling conflicts, no more budget overruns that nobody noticed until it was too late. I also started recruiting talent that actually wanted to work, not just collect paychecks. Sarah Chen became our digital marketing specialist, a 28-year-old dynamo who understood social media and online advertising better than anyone I had ever met. Jake Miller joined as our operations coordinator, a former Navy logistics officer who could organize chaos into efficiency. Emma Rodriguez, a finance graduate who had been working at a bank, became our new financial analyst. These 3 people believed in rebuilding something great, and they were willing to work as hard as I was. The results spoke louder than Marcus ever could. Our revenue jumped from $1.2 million to $3.8 million in my first full year of implementing these changes. We went from 12 employees to 32. Our client satisfaction scores, which had been dismal, shot up to 94%. Construction Today magazine featured us in an article about innovative small businesses transforming their industries. But here is what made my blood boil. Marcus still held the higher title, still made the bigger salary, and still got credit for everything. At company meetings, he would stand up and talk about his vision and his leadership style. He spoke at industry events about the turnaround strategy that he had never even seen, let alone developed. When reporters called for interviews, Marcus was always the face of Harrison and Sons Construction. The breaking point came when I discovered that Marcus had negotiated himself a salary increase to $180,000 annually while I was still making $75,000. He justified this to Dad by claiming that his relationship-building efforts were the foundation of our success. Never mind that I was working twice as many hours and had actually created the systems that saved us. During this time, we landed 2 massive contracts that solidified our reputation. The Riverside Mall renovation project was worth $2.5 million, the biggest single contract in company history. I spent 3 months developing innovative techniques for renovating occupied commercial spaces, minimizing disruption to businesses while maximizing efficiency. The Pacific Heights residential project followed shortly after, a $4.1 million luxury housing development that required cutting-edge, sustainable building practices. I was invited to speak at the Regional Builders Convention about innovative construction management techniques. Standing on that stage, looking out at 300 industry professionals, I felt something I had never experienced before. Recognition, not for being William Harrison's son or Marcus Harrison's little brother, but for being Leonard Harrison, the guy who figured out how to save a dying company. Our workforce had grown to 45 employees across 2 new branch locations. We had a waiting list of clients for the first time since 2007. Industry publications were calling us a success story. And through it all, Marcus continued taking credit while contributing absolutely nothing of substance. The most infuriating part was watching him in meetings with potential clients. He would lean back in his chair, perfectly confident, talking about market positioning and strategic partnerships, while having no idea what our actual capabilities were. I would sit there with detailed project plans, cost analyses, and implementation timelines, waiting for someone to ask me a direct question so I could actually contribute to the conversation. When Dad started having serious health issues and needed extended time away from the office, the board of directors made the obvious choice. Marcus Harrison MBA, charming personality, family legacy, became interim CEO. I remained senior project manager, which sounds important until you realize it meant I was doing all the actual work while reporting to someone who spent most of his time networking at country clubs. The announcement came during our monthly staff meeting. Dad, looking frailer than I had ever seen him, stood up and made it official. Marcus will be stepping into the CEO role while I focus on my recovery. I have complete confidence in his ability to lead this company into the future. The applause felt like nails on a chalkboard. I clapped along, maintaining my professional smile, while inside I was screaming. Marcus, lasting 6 months as CEO, was actually longer than I expected. His first major decision was to eliminate what he called unnecessary operational expenses, which translated to firing some of our most skilled workers and canceling our technology upgrades. Within 3 months, our revenue had dropped 22%, and we lost 2 major clients who were frustrated with delayed timelines and communication breakdowns. While Marcus was destroying what I had built, I was working midnight shifts, trying to fix the damage. I renegotiated contracts with suppliers, hired back the skilled workers Marcus had fired, and made personal calls to clients, assuring them that their projects would be completed on time and within budget. I was essentially functioning as the CEO, while Marcus held the title and collected the salary. During this period, I developed something that would change everything. After months of research and experimentation, I created a revolutionary eco-friendly concrete mix that was 30% stronger than traditional concrete, while reducing environmental impact by 45%. The patent application was submitted under Harrison and Sons Construction, but the innovation was entirely mine. Licensing deals with major construction companies were already being discussed, potentially worth millions in annual revenue. I also discovered that Marcus had been even more irresponsible with company finances than I realized. A detailed audit of his expenses revealed that he had spent $680,000 on what he categorized as business expenses and networking events. This included $43,000 at high-end restaurants, where he claimed to be meeting with clients, $28,000 on golf memberships and tournament fees, and $37,000 on luxury hotel stays for industry conferences that I could find no record of him attending. The final straw came during a board of directors meeting in November. This was not just family anymore. We had brought in 3 external investors to help fund our expansion, and they expected professional management and transparent reporting. The conference room at our headquarters was packed with people who had put their money and trust into Harrison and Sons Construction. Marcus had prepared what he called a comprehensive 5-year expansion plan. As he started his presentation, I realized with horror that he was presenting my strategic development plan word for word. The market analysis, the growth projections, the operational improvements, even the innovative construction techniques. Everything was mine, but Marcus presented it as his own vision for the company. I sat in the corner of the room, not even invited to participate in the discussion, watching my brother steal credit for 2 years of my work. The investors were impressed. They asked detailed questions about implementation timelines and budget requirements, questions that Marcus answered with vague generalities because he had no idea what he was actually talking about. Then came the announcement that made me see red. Marcus stood up, straightened his tie, and smiled at the room full of people who controlled our company's future. As part of this expansion strategy, we will be restructuring our leadership team. Leonard has done excellent work as senior project manager, but we need someone with stronger executive presence in a more strategic role. I will be promoting Leonard to senior project manager. He paused for effect, completely unaware of how ridiculous he sounded. This new position will allow him to focus on what he does best while leaving the strategic thinking and client relationship management to those better suited for executive responsibilities. That was the moment something snapped inside me. I stood up so quickly that my chair rolled backward and hit the wall. Every face in the room turned toward me, and for the first time in my professional life, I had everyone's complete attention. "I need to say something," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "Marcus, you just presented my strategic plan. Every single word of that presentation represents work I completed over the past 18 months. The market analysis, the operational improvements, the financial projections, the timeline for expansion, all of it." Marcus' face went pale, then red. "Leonard, this is not the time or place for." "Actually, this is exactly the time and place." I pulled out my laptop and connected it to the conference room projector. "Ladies and gentlemen, let me show you the real numbers behind Harrison and Sons Construction Recovery." For the next 20 minutes, I presented evidence that I had been collecting for months. Financial reports showing the correlation between my operational changes and our revenue increase. Email chains proving that I had developed and implemented every major improvement Marcus was claiming credit for. Client testimonials specifically mentioning my work and my innovations. Documentation of Marcus expense reports showing $680,000 in questionable business expenses while contributing nothing measurable to company performance. The room was dead silent. One of the investors, Margaret Foster, looked at Marcus with barely controlled anger. "Mr. Harrison, these are serious allegations. How do you respond to this documentation?" Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. His perfectly practiced confidence had evaporated completely. "These numbers are taken out of context. Leonard is obviously upset about the restructuring, and he is trying to make himself look more important than he actually is." I had one more card to play. Last week, 3 of our biggest clients called me directly to express concerns about project delays and communication problems that started after Marcus became CEO. Riverside Development Group, Pacific Commercial Properties, and Green Tech Solutions all specifically requested to work directly with me on future projects because they trust my management style and technical expertise. That was when I delivered the line that would end my career at Harrison and Sons Construction. "I have been running this company for 3 years while Marcus has been playing CEO. It is time someone acknowledged that fact." I closed my laptop, looked around the room one final time, and walked out. Behind me, I could hear Marcus stammering explanations that nobody was buying, and Dad calling my name. But I was done. 26 years of being the overlooked little brother, 8 years of watching my work get credited to someone else, and 3 years of single-handedly saving our family business had led to this moment. I drove home in complete silence, my hands shaking with adrenaline and relief. For the first time in my adult life, I had told the truth without worrying about family dynamics or keeping the peace. Whatever happened next, at least everyone knew exactly who had been doing the actual work. I quit Harrison and Sons Construction that same day and spent the evening writing my resignation letter. Not an angry rant, just a professional explanation that I was pursuing other opportunities. I emailed it to the board at midnight and started planning my next move before the sun came up. 3 weeks later, Harrison Construction Solutions opened for business. The name was intentional. Not Harrison and Sons, just Harrison Construction Solutions. This company would be mine alone, built on my vision and my work ethic. I rented a small office space downtown, bought used furniture, and started making calls to everyone who had expressed interest in working with me directly. The response was overwhelming. 80% of our former employees reached out within the first month asking if I was hiring. Sarah, Jake, and Emma were my first official hires, and they brought credibility and expertise that made everything possible. Within 6 weeks, we had 15 employees and our first major contract. Green Tech Solutions was our anchor client. Jennifer Walsh, the executive I had impressed years earlier, awarded us a $1.8 million sustainable office complex project. "Leonard, we have been waiting for you to start your own company," she told me during our signing meeting. "Your innovative approaches and reliability made you our first-choice contractor years ago." The Pacific Heights Residential Group followed with a $2.4 million luxury housing development. Riverside Development Group signed an exclusive partnership agreement for all their future commercial projects. Within 6 months, Harrison Construction Solutions had generated $2.8 million in revenue with a profit margin of 23%. Our efficiency was incredible because we had eliminated all the waste and politics that had bogged down the old company. The breakthrough came when we won a major government contract for sustainable municipal building construction worth $8.5 million. This project would establish us as leaders in eco-friendly construction technology and provide steady revenue for 3 years. The contract was awarded specifically because of my patented concrete innovation and our track record for completing projects on time and under budget. Meanwhile, Marcus' company, still called Harrison and Sons, was bleeding money again. Without my operational systems and client relationships, they lost another $1.1 million within 8 months of my departure. Several former clients called me directly asking if I could take over projects that were falling behind schedule under Marcus' management. I politely declined, focusing on building my own reputation rather than fixing his mistakes. Dad tried to reconcile multiple times. He would call and leave voicemails, saying he finally understood what had really been happening, that he wanted to make things right. The stroke he suffered 6 months after I left was a wake-up call about family priorities. When he recovered enough to have serious conversations, he asked if I would consider coming back to save Harrison and Sons one more time. I met him for lunch at his favorite diner, the place where he used to take Marcus and me when we were kids. He looked older, frailer, but his eyes still had that intensity that had built a construction empire decades earlier. "Son, I made mistakes. I let family dynamics cloud my business judgment. Marcus never had what it took to run that company, and I should have seen that years ago. I appreciated his honesty, but some bridges burn for good reasons. Dad, I forgive you for not seeing my contributions, but I cannot go backward.